Are you ready again?
Yes.
Jon Peckman Podcast, Connecticut Valley School of Music and Dance, beautiful downtown Portland, Connecticut. Come over the bridge, go through one set of lights, pull a Yui, park in the street, red neon light in the window. You can't miss us. We are here. You can have your own podcast right here in our studio. Anybody can do it, clearly. Dave will tell you how. Like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Come on the show. We have a first today. We're doing a part 2 with Mr. Keith LeBlanc. He was here last week, and he's here this week because there's just too much. There's too much. And I'd rather get it. I want to get it. I want to get it now. I don't want to say, yeah, we'll do it in a year from now. We got to do it now. And then also, I started doing my research, and it was kind of mind-blowing. There was a lot more stuff than I knew, so I want to talk about more stuff. And you're here.
Okay.
And I appreciate that.
I appreciate you having me.
Of course. No, it's pretty mind-blowing. I mean, I consider myself somewhat of a music nerd, I suppose, but I did not quite realize the breadth and the depth of your thing. So I want to talk more about it.
Okay.
I mean, we can't go like 3/4 of the way, and then you just drop Trevor Horn in there, and then we don't have time to talk about it. I was
okay.
Like, whoa.
Okay.
However, is there anything you want to talk about that we didn't? You know, because I don't want to just like steamroll over your thing.
No, just go for it. Go for it.
All right. Stupid questions. All right. So anyway, in case you did not see part 1, you should see part 1. So basically to sum up, so this man here, Keith LeBlanc, so original drummer for the Sugar Hill record label back in the day, the beginning of hip hop, live band cuts, live band tracks, Sugar Hill Gang. I mean, you want to? What are some of the things? Some of the songs. I mean, that's the joint.
Yeah, just about everything that came out of there was me on it in that 3-year period from like the end of 1979 to about 83, 84. And then it got kind of spotty.
Yeah.
I left for a while, and Doug gave me a call. He said, because I kind of got upset and quit. They got funny with my money.
Oh, boy.
And so I said, I've had enough of this.
Wow.
And I didn't give him any warning. And Doug called me, and he said, "Hey, Keith, you got Dennis's number?"
Oh, boy.
And,
really?
Yeah, and like...
Oh.
And I thought he was calling me, you know, they wanted me back, you know, because after I had quit, I said, maybe I didn't do the right thing, you know. And so, you know, I gave him Dennis's number. And then Dennis called me and goes, "Hey, Keith, what's up?" You know, and so I told him the score, and I said, "I suggest you ask for twice the money because
You think it's going down.
They're stuck."
Yeah.
And, you know... And I knew Dennis was like, you know, incredible replacement. So Dennis lasted there maybe 2 or 3 weeks. You know,
whoa.
You'd have to ask Dennis.
Whoa. What was he doing then? Was he on the way up yet? Like in a big way?
No, we had been on the road with Parliament.
Okay.
So Dennis had done Parliament, and I guess he was back in Baltimore playing with.
Okay.
I forget.
So it wasn't quite like, what's the main thing? I don't remember. I mean, I was around. Like, the main thing that launched him.
Really, what really launched Dennis was, I think it was a trumpet player's band.
Oh.
And that's how.
Because I think Schofield is when I started
Schofield
noticing.
really launched him. And I remember when Dennis, this was years after he had taken over for me at Sugar Hill, took my chair for about 3 weeks. And he got mad. You know, he got mad because they got funny with it, tried to mess with his money.
Wow.
So he threatened to body slam Sylvia's son. And he would have done it. Wow. So he got his money and he didn't.
So it was rough down there.
He never came back. Well, you know, it was New Jersey, very slick, New York.
So they're just trying to get over on you all the time.
Well, that's how they came up.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, really, I figured it out after years. The Robinsons.
I mean, don't incriminate yourself. I'm just curious.
No, I really loved them because when I ended up doing Malcolm X, I ended up going to court with them.
Oh.
And
for using the samples.
They were trying to say that they own Malcolm X's voice.
Oh, wow.
So I got Betty Shabazz. I got in
Sure.
touch with Betty, gave her 50% of the record.
Oh, wow.
Because that's why I
Sure.
didn't do it with Sugar Hill, because I knew that they were going to rip Betty off.
Oh, man.
So I ended up in New Jersey District Court, and the judge that picked the case was this guy, Herbert J. Stern, who was the DA that investigated Malcolm's death. So anyway,
Wow.
After that was all over.
Did you know that was all going to happen so how did you make that thing? So it's No Sellout, it's called. Was Malcolm X speeches cut up?
Yeah, well, I was just starving at that point. There was no work at Sugar Hill.
Yeah.
Skip and Doug had started recording with this guy in Philadelphia, and they didn't want me coming down there for some reason. And I eventually found out the guy was like a major drug dealer, and that's why they didn't want me. They actually saved my life not having me go down there.
Oh, boy.
But they weren't, my musical family was gone, so I was kind of, wayward back in Connecticut trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And at that time, Run DMC had come out with some stuff, and it was all just drum machine and raps.
Yeah, yeah.
And I said, well, I could do something like that.
Yeah.
And I remember Grandmaster Flash cutting some cassette tapes over a beat, and I always liked that idea, of Dirty Harry talking or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I remembered there was some Malcolm X records up at Sugar Hill, so I went up there and got one.
Ooh.
Found one, and I was walking out with it, and I ran into Marshall Chess, and he asked me what I was doing with it, and I said, I'm going to do a 12-inch with Malcolm's speeches. I had no idea what I was going to do.
Yeah, yeah.
And he goes, I like that idea. How much you need?
Yeah, right.
So
right.
I told him, $50, make a demo.
Wow.
So he handed me $50, so I'm driving home. What did I just do?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I called Harold Sargent, and I said, the drummer I told you about in the last episode. And I said, Harold, I'm in trouble. And he said, look, go buy Al Haley's biography of Malcolm X.
Yep.
And then come over to my house. And he loaded me up with stacks of Malcolm X speech records.
But why did you pick Malcolm X? You just thought it would be powerful.
Yeah.
There's something powerful.
That's exactly what I thought.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was a kid, my parents hated Malcolm X.
Sure.
And they liked Martin Luther King. And
sure.
That was about all I knew about Malcolm X.
Right.
And I didn't realize the gravity of what I was going to do, because at that time it was pretty untouchable subject.
Oh, okay.
Doing anything with his speeches back then.
Wow.
And so,
could you imagine that it would turn into a legal thing? Or you just said, I'm going to roll the dice, see what happens? Or you didn't think about it?
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Was it worth it?
Yes.
Okay.
Every minute of it.
Hey, well, that's cool.
I got to be good friends with Malcolm's wife, Betty Shabazz, and I learned a lot.
Sure.
But what I learned after the trial was over, of course we won, but we had to give Joe a point, and just for him to go away. Point on the record. But with them, it was beyond money. They really loved Malcolm X, so they realized they were on the wrong side of history, and so Joe killed the record in the States. He was calling all the radio stations. These white boys are stealing our shit.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So you could play it like that.
So they only played it on college radio in the States. And I think, so anyway,
Wow.
After that was all over, they called me back to do some more sessions at Sugar Hill. And that's when I realized Joey and Sylvia Robinson would promise you the moon and rip you off.
Uh-huh.
Now, they actually treated me with a lot of respect when I came back, and that's when I realized, if you want to act like a punk and you don't want to go do your own thing, go across the river, the heck with them.
Yeah.
Then you deserve what you get.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to stand up and be a man, you know, that's how Joe saw
Now
it.
you're on their side of it. You're in the thing.
Then they give you that respect. That's all they're going to give you. They're not going to give you anything else. But that's how they kind of looked at things, and you know, I respected that. So,
wow.
So that was a great learning experience.
Wow.
Actually.
And then Tommy Boy.
Yeah. Well, I ended up putting out with Tommy Boy Records, and
which was kind of the future. That was the next thing-ish.
yeah, I mean, you know,
as far as I could
we
tell.
ended up in court. I said to Tommy, "Are we going to make any money from this?" And he said, "Keith, I doubt it.
Right.
This record's going to have to make enough money for us to steal from you and still pay you."
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know what to say to that. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, but I was glad he told me the truth. He was being honest with me.
Yeah.
And I asked Marshall Chess about it, and he said, "Tommy's probably going to end up spending money, Keith, you know."
Wow.
So I think for that record, Betty got, what was it, 25,000. I got 25,000.
Yeah, right. Well,
So you know, back then that was a lot of money.
but sure, I would take it. But there was a buzz, though. So then probably everyone's like, what is this? Because it was the first thing kind of like that.
Yeah, that kind of opened the door for me
Right.
to become a producer. And
So it was worth it, even though you didn't make a killing on that record.
right,
It was like, who's this? Who's doing this?
kind of
What is
gave
it?
me a career, and you
Yeah.
know. But when it came out, man, it was scary. I had journalists calling me from all over the world, hating me, you know.
Oh,
and,
wow. And you weren't even thinking about it like that, so you probably didn't have an answer.
Well, Betty Shabazz, Malcolm's widow, she basically told me, she said, "Keith, I love this." And Malcolm would have loved it too.
Sure.
So I was cool with that. They could say anything they wanted.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, someone's going to call you up and try and corner you or get a thing. You know that you're not, like you say, you're not the white dude trying to rip us off. That wasn't what you were doing.
Right. And she got a big kick
You
out
know
of it.
that. Yeah, as long as she knows that, then who cares? Everyone else can.
She once told me when Spike Lee's movie came out, I was living in England by then, and she called me up. She wanted me to go on this news show with her, but I couldn't make it. So we met for breakfast. And we're in the limo, and she goes, "Keith, imagine now I'm married to a prince." And that was her way of saying, you kind of opened the door for that, because till I did that record, no one wanted to touch that subject.
Wow. Yeah, he was the bad one. He was not the good one or whatever.
It was the whole murder thing, you
Yeah,
know? Who
yeah.
did it? You know, it was like people were scared. Even that guy that did the documentary about who killed Malcolm X.
Yeah.
Everyone was telling the same thing I was getting, which was, you don't want to do this.
Yeah, because you don't know. You don't know who's going to come.
But I was too young to know what to be afraid of, really.
Wow.
You know, so I just kind of went forward.
Wow. That's heavy. So once again, you made things happen.
And that kind of opened a career for me up in England, and that's why I moved to England. I had more work in England than I did in the States.
Huh.
So.
And you knew, and it was, who did you know over there? Was it Adrian Sherwood?
He was the first one that came over and wanted me to go over to England. But as soon as people found, I had people calling Tommy Boy. ABC called me to go over there and work with them.
Yeah.
Malcolm McLaren.
Oh, yeah, right. I missed that one.
And I don't think that stuff ever came out. I think it maybe ended up on a British Airways commercial for a minute.
So they were like, okay. So I called you because I told you I was going through your credits. This is kind of really, you may find, I don't know if you're going to find this interesting, but I think this is funny. So when I graduated high school in 1985, and I liked around, 82, 83, drum machines were coming in. So, right. And I liked that sound.
Right.
So I bought the Frankie Goes to Hollywood record. Hall & Oates did a record that was kind of downtown sounding. And I was into Thomas Dolby, who kind of had a breakdance thing.
I love Thomas Dolby,
yeah.
That was great stuff.
And the ABC record, because I don't remember where I heard it. Be Near Me was a big hit. But there was some. So anyway, that's what I thought. It was like English, but there was a downtown. What I thought, living here in Connecticut, was a downtown New York drum machine element to it.
Right.
That was YOU.
Yeah, that was me.
That is so funny because I there was this one track. I don't even know if you remember it. Who knows? It was kind of like. It was called A to Z. They kind of introduced themselves.
Right. The intro,
the intro thing, and the drums were wicked. I used to play that thing over and over and go, man, this is so cool. Then
when I got a drum machine, it was so like
funny. Yeah, you turned that thing inside out. Like I listened to it now, and I was like, how did you even?
Well, I did stuff. I looked at it this way: I could play drums.
Yeah, sure. I guess
so
what
I'm
I
not
figured.
gonna,
this has got to be a drummer.
I'm not going to try and recreate drums because I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying to do stuff a drummer could never do.
Mm-hmm.
And DMX quantized up to 96 notes.
Right.
No drum machines even do that now.
Yeah, right.
So I was able to take the toms and time step them in.
Oh, man.
And make these drills, like these jackhammer drills.
That's what I'm saying.
In rhythm. And then I would open the box and tune them while we were recording. And, people thought I was crazy, but they loved the sound. And that was a pretty copied sound. Like right after that, I started a whole genre of deep house and a couple other genres where they were using that. They were doing it with everything. Hi-hats,
Yeah.
But I did it with everything before they did. And
so funny. Yeah, there's this thing on the end of that song. You can hear the quantize. It's like one measure. It goes from like...
Right. Yep.
Dude, I used to play that. I used to drop that on the needle over and over and be like, man, oh, man. And imagine my surprise. I'm sorry. It just like it's so funny because like I was into that record. And then I met you and kind of going through your discography, and I'm like, wait a minute, that record? And I went to my record rack and pulled out the record that I had in high school. Yep, there he is. The name meant nothing to me back then, because how would I know? Yeah, it was just a name on the thing. That's heavy.
Well, when I showed up in England, the press was pretty disappointed because they expected this big 6-foot-tall black man to show up. And
oh, wow.
Here comes this...
And they're like, that's the dude?
Little white guy with long hair and cowboy boots on and really doesn't know how to dress. And so I think Betty summed it up best. She said, when the Malcolm X record came out, my name was like big. And then Malcolm X's name was small. And I told Betty I didn't like it. She said, that's perfect. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, Keith, of all the great black artists that could have done something with my husband's speeches, it took a little white boy from Connecticut to pull it off. So no one could say anything to me after that.
Yeah, right.
And
yeah, that's it.
Really, I wasn't very clever, so I just, I remember going to do Malcolm McLaren, and I show up, and they've got a Fairlight there. And they've got this Barry White tune they've put together. Mm-hmm. And Malcolm wants me to do dance tunes in 3/4.
Oh, boy.
And no one wanted to take the job. My manager at the time was saying, nobody wants to take this job, Keith. He just fired Trevor Horn. So. Man. And besides, he's kind of a shyster. So.
Oh, boy.
So I wasn't very clever. I just spoke my mind. So I sat there with him and I said, well, gee, Malcolm, it sounds like I got to come up with it, the whole thing, don't I?
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah. And I said, well, I want more money.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, I don't know about that. And I said, well, while you think about it, tomorrow morning I'm going to be at the airport on my way back to New York. You let me know.
Hey.
And, right when I was at the airport, they showed up with a car and he paid me what I wanted. And,
oh, wow.
And he had some wonderful stories. And that's how I met Trevor.
Okay.
Because I was working at Trevor's studio, SARM Studios, with Malcolm. And Trevor was saying, Malcolm really likes what you're doing. What are you doing, Keith?
Yeah, right.
And I told him, I said, well, I'm just fudging it, really.
Did you bring your own machine, or by then you're working on the Fairlight, or you're working on the...
That was the thing. The guy had this beautiful two-headed Fairlight, spent loads of money, and he would program, but I would do all the playing into the
I see.
And I'd get something going, and he'd go in and mess it all up, and he kept doing that. So Malcolm fired him, and then I got in Skip and Doug Wimbish, and we started cutting tracks for Malcolm, and then it worked out pretty good after that. But that's how I met Trevor, and then Trevor started calling me for sessions, and he had endless things to do. And a real good producer, Steve Lipson, was working with Trevor.
Yeah.
And those guys, they did Frankie Goes to Hollywood, and I mean the work they put into that.
I love that record.
The stories I heard.
I can't even imagine.
They did it all on Synclavier.
Oh, okay.
Hours and hours.
I mean,
hours
I
of
bought that
programming
record
to get a bar.
Yeah. That first track, there's like one song, "Welcome to the Pleasure Dome." That's the whole side of the record. It's just like it's one of my favorite things ever. It's crazy.
And then I was asking him about the Grace Jones track they did, and Steve Lipson had programmed all that, and he said they got I forgot the guy's name, but he played with Trouble Funk.
Oh, right, because there's
flew
like
him
a
in from
go-go thing.
Yep, they flew him in from D.C., and he couldn't play. He couldn't, he had a groove.
Sure.
And they wanted a drum machine, and so they ended up sampling bits of him.
Right.
And Steve put it all through a Fairlight.
Yeah.
And it took him weeks.
Oh man.
To do that record, just to get the drums down.
Yeah. And then they made a whole album out of that one track.
Yeah.
It's another record that I loved, "Slave to the Rhythm."
Yep. And they were just really on the cutting edge. So I was seeing that and saying, well, this is a. Because me and Skip and Doug and Adrian, we were doing that. We were cutting the edge, but we were doing it on the cheap side, and they were doing it
on a Fairlight.
They were doing it on a Synclavier.
Okay.
Which is, you're talking about one. House money back then.
Yeah, right.
That's what it would have cost. So,
good Lord.
But it was very cool getting to know Trevor because I thought he was a great producer. His productions were so kind of like moody blues, just endless thickness of every time you listen to it, you hear something different. There's something in there. And I got to watch him do it,
That's crazy.
And so, he called me for a lot of interesting sessions. And then I stayed in England and I infiltrated the jazz scene over there, which was another big education because along with playing with, pop stars, that was kind of my income, doing sessions for Seal. And my name got around, Annie Lennox and Trevor. He hooked me up with the Tina Turner session. A lot of things came through him.
Yep. Wow.
So that was kind of my bread and butter, but I was infiltrating the jazz scene. There's some amazing musicians in the UK. And I met these two brothers, the Mundese brothers.
Okay.
Bass and drums.
Yep.
And Mark Mundese is like this incredible drummer. I mean, he's the only guy that made Tony Williams come out of his dressing room to have a look.
Hey.
I mean,
are they still around?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll check it out.
And so, no one wanted to help them out. And so the bass player, Michael, he drove up to me in the street in London. And he handed me his card. He goes, "You need this," And so I met them both, and they both stuttered really badly.
Oh boy!
And so me being American, I just said, "Look, man, what do I do? I mean, you stutter really badly. What do I do? Do I fill in the blank or do I wait?" And so they both started laughing like that, and they said. They said, no, never fill in the blank. Always wait. And then they started telling me how they loved me because I came right out with it. Usually, they said they have to suffer through the people going, "Oh, my cousin stutters," And
And you're just like, "Yo, what do I do?"
Yeah, right. And neither of them stuttered when they played. Believe me, it was like off the chain. But
wow.
And then they both took this course and they don't stutter anymore. But back then, it was pretty bad. But Mark,
they probably have an app for that now. You just press a button on your phone and your stutter goes away or something.
Yeah, but Mark and Michael both were rhythm geniuses. Like Mark could drop 4 time signatures at once.
Yeah. Wow.
Independently.
Yeah.
And I went out to dinner with Mark and Vinny Caliuto because Vinny wanted to meet me. And he was buying all my sample CDs I was making. And so we sat down, and first thing Vinny does, we sit down at a table in a restaurant. Vinny pulls out a practice pad and a pair of sticks. Throws the practice pad on the table. And, no, here we go. He goes, Keith, give me a single. So
Yeah.
I did the best single I could muster up.
Sure.
In front of Vinny, right?
Oh,
and then Vinny looks at me, and then I looked at Mark. I said, hey, Mark, why don't you drop 4 time signatures for Vinny?
Yeah, right.
So Mark just pulled it out. Vinny put that practice pad away.
Ooh.
It was funny.
Wow.
And, we hung out most of the night. But I learned from those guys quite a bit about rhythm. And then I met the guy that they learned it from, this guy named Mano Ventura, this incredible Peruvian guitar player. And I joined his band.
And these guys are from where? They're in England.
They're all in London.
Yeah.
And Mano Ventura was from Peru.
Okay.
And every guitar player, McLaughlin, you name all of them, they all stole from this guy.
Okay.
But he's like one of these underground geniuses because his social skills a little bit, like mine, but his band, we had this French bass player, brilliant bass player. And basically the whole concept was he broke all the musical rules, but it worked and it sounded beautiful. And we might play a tune where I'd be playing in 7, and the bass player would be playing in 9.
Yeah.
And he'd be playing all over the top of that.
Wow.
With the sax player. And I found out that the Mendesi brothers played with him for years. And everyone that was really good over there had all played with this guy. So I spent about 4 years playing in his band just for the love of doing it.
Wow.
And really nothing ever got released or anything. We ended up doing some recordings that I've got tapes of that I don't play them for anybody because every time I do, they don't want to call me back. It's like, because it's beyond stuff.
Oh.
But in England, I noticed that you had influences from all over the world being in the center of Europe. So you had a lot of Indian and tabla influences.
Yeah.
A lot of Cuban influences. Jamaican, of course.
Yeah.
And I, with Adrian, I got to play with Lee Scratch Perry and
I can't even imagine.
Bim Sherman, Junior Delgado, and it was always really funny when they saw me.
Yeah, right.
The Jamaican thing, they'd be till they heard me play, then it was okay.
Yeah.
And I always kept my mouth shut with those guys. I just,
Yeah, just do it.
I just shut up and played. I think that's why Lee liked me.
Wow.
And
what was that like? I can't even.
Lee Scratch Perry was like, best description of him was Jamaican George Clinton.
Yeah, right. That's how I think of him. Yeah.
And he was crazy. He would do just about anything. Like we did this. They have this thing, carnival, in a part of London, and we were supposed to do a float with Lee Scratch Perry. Adrian was going to dub it.
Yeah.
So I just went along. Check it out. And this man started singing like at 12.
Yeah.
Or no, it was more like 10 in the morning when it started.
Yeah.
All day.
Yeah, right.
Never stopped.
Crazy.
And it lasted till that evening.
Oof.
And but I got along with Lee good because the first time I met him, Adrian had picked him up at the airport, and he was really drunk, and he was in the backseat of Adrian's brand new car throwing up.
Oh,
and, Adrian said, he said, I'm sorry, Keith, but he's brilliant artist. And I said, the man looks like he belongs in a convalescent home. I had no idea. So
you weren't a reggae, you didn't know?
No.
Wow.
So
that's funny.
So we're going to the gig. He's sobered up now, and I said, hey, Lee, I don't know anything about reggae. Is this gonna be any good? and, you know, meanwhile, there's people lined up to, well, let me kiss your butt. You know?
Right.
And he
Yeah,
said,
maybe that's the thing. Yeah.
and he stopped acting crazy, and he looked at me and says, well, actually, I got to go back to Jamaica to get what I really need, but this is going to be pretty good, Keith. And then he went back to acting crazy around everyone else.
Wow.
Which was...
that's interesting.
That kind of let me know a little bit about Lee.
Yeah.
And he used that craziness to get...
That's what I was thinking, just to
get his publishing,
you
you know, because, oh, gee, we don't want any trouble, you know, type thing.
Wow.
And so, you know...
Why not?
And then I ended up playing with Bernie Worrell's band for a while when I moved back to the States, because I had met him while I was in England. So England was a big education for me. I just soaked it up, and everybody had something new.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I left the States, you know, people were playing in odd time signatures, but they weren't going as deep.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed like in England, nobody played in 4/4, you know, unless it was a pop gig. You know?
I see. Yeah. That's interesting. Did you do much jazz playing before? But there weren't the heavy cats here, like that heavy. But you wanted to play with it was when you got over there that you're like, oh, okay.
Well, I played with the records. I mean,
right.
I always wanted to play fusion music. That's what I wanted to play.
Okay.
I didn't, you know.
Yeah.
Funk was kind of a close cousin.
Yeah.
And, you know, playing with Skip and Doug, they really honed me in on the pocket type thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always been the kind of guy where, you know, if the music, you know, like I told you in the last session, you know, I'm listening to the total sound. So whatever the music requires, that's what I'm trying to do. So playing with these fusion bands in England, I was playing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, right.
That I had learned years ago, you know, and I never got a chance to use. But I was going, oh, gee, you know, the people used to come to gigs. Oh, I didn't know you could do that.
Like I've been waiting my whole life. I'm ready. Yeah.
But it just came out of me because the music required it, and
yep, I know what you mean.
In a musical way. So it was great being over there, but I missed the States. I didn't want to get old in England, you know.
No.
Yeah, because no matter how good friends you are with somebody, no matter how many people you know, there's a line. You'll always be a Yank.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? It's subtle, but it's...
So you're only going to get so far, maybe.
Well, you know,
I wonder if it's the opposite.
Probably.
You know?
Probably. It's probably the same both ways. When you're from another country, there is a little bit of separation there. You know? You're not really English. You know, even though I had an English stamp in my passport and all that.
Sure.
English license. But, you know, even if I got knighted by the Queen or something crazy like that, it still wouldn't work, you know?
Yeah, right. Well, wow.
So I wanted to come back to the States. I'm really glad I did, you know.
Hey, well, that's cool. Wait, I want to back up. I just started. I was thinking of this before. So you come over to England with more of a reputation of programming, let's say. You got to wonder, there's some people, they think you're programming. They even know that you play drums.
Well, most of them didn't care, you know.
Right. I was just thinking that's funny. Like, they don't even know, like, how can this dude do that? And you're like, I'm just taking drums to here.
Right.
And then, but Trevor must have figured it out because the stuff you played on with him, you're playing trap, so.
Yeah, Trevor, he loved my programming, and he liked my playing, too.
Yeah.
Him and Steve Lipson, they both had real good ears, so.
So they recognized, they just said, okay.
Well, he wanted me to play drums on the track because he knew I played drums. Because by that time, Tackhead was doing gigs.
Oh,
so
okay, all right.
I was on stage playing against a percussion loop.
Yeah.
Out of a drum machine.
Yeah.
So basically playing with a click live.
Yeah.
And
that's funny. So they were like, "Yo, get you on some get some drum stuff." Talk about working with Seal, just out of curiosity. I'm just curious. I, again, did not. Let me just say, I think this is funny. This is the shit that I live for. So I'm doing my Keith LeBlanc research, and I'm like, okay, how do we get from Sugar Hill to Pretty Hate Machine? And then, but when you follow it, though, and I hear the same year, Tackhead, I did this for my wife. I go, do you hear it? There's no difference. Like, I'm just like, this is what he's doing, and then this is Pretty Hate Machine, and you just go, yeah, that's that guy. Didn't know that you played on Seal, and I listened to it, and I go, yeah, that's him, because I can hear it. I can hear it.
Right.
But I didn't know that those are all the same people. That's why I would suggest people, if you're interested, you got to listen to my mixes, because it's funny. You just go, oh, yeah, no, that is him. Yeah, I hear it now, because it's the same. But I never would connect those dots, because how would I?
Well, I think I took up the drums because I loved them, number one, but I always liked the idea of being back of the stage.
Yep.
And, I always used to get, when I started, really bad stage fright.
Oh.
It was a thing, and
Yeah.
Then after a while, when you go to the stage, you feel a little something.
Yeah.
And if you don't feel that, maybe it's time to take up woodworking.
Sure.
Or
No, I hear you. Yeah, you got
But, when I first started out, playing for my relatives and stuff, that was nothing. But playing for my high school class terrified me,
boy.
That type of thing.
Bristol High or whatever. Whatever it was.
Yeah, man. It was terrifying. But I forgot the question.
No, Seal. I just was curious how that
Seal.
happened.
Well, Trevor came to me and goes, that's a great new artist.
Yeah.
And so he had me come in and program drums for, what was the song? Big hit.
Crazy. Yep.
First draft of it. Trevor would always do.
Yeah.
And so I went in, and he had just fired his programmer.
Oh, wow.
And the guy took all the samples out of the place.
Oh, boy.
So I went, and they had nothing. So I opened my case, and I said, just load it up with everything.
Yeah.
So, and then, Trevor said he wanted like a White Lines type deal.
Yeah.
So, I knocked that up. And he came in, and he goes, Keith, make sure none of those samples leave with you. And I said, Trevor, when I came here, you didn't have any.
Yeah, right.
So I just gave you all mine. You can have them.
Yeah.
And so I think he liked that. So then when they did the album, he had me come and play live drums on everything.
Oh, cool.
So that's, and Seal was just kind of hanging around, really quiet.
Yeah.
I never got to see him voice anything.
Wow.
And I guess he was living on a park bench when Trevor found him.
Wow. Crazy.
This great keyboard player named Guy Zigworth did a lot of the arranging of that stuff for Trevor. And
wow.
so, who could have known Seal was going to be a huge star? But that's what I mean, what a great producer the guy was. He could see a diamond in the rough and just...
That's what I was thinking, yeah. Yeah, he wasn't wrong.
Yeah, it takes years to be able to do that. And
it's crazy.
He told me, he said, Keith, if you want to be a great producer, you got to find something new that no one's done.
Yeah.
And trust your instincts and go for it. And if it works, you're there.
A genius, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. He said, but you have to be prepared for it not to work,
Well, you kind of were doing that with No Sellout. Like you were already you did that.
Well, I think that's why he put up with me, because actually,
wow.
But
that's wild.
And then, when I moved back to the States, it took a while to get back into everything. And now I just kind of, I'm at the point now where I just do what's fun.
Yeah.
Occasional job.
Yeah.
But mostly I try and do things that are really fun for me to do. I really enjoy just playing out with local guys.
That's cool.
I love playing live because once you hit the note, it's gone.
Yeah, right.
It never comes back to haunt you.
Yeah, you're not going to go to court. No one's going to. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. It doesn't come back to haunt you. That's funny.
Yeah, but you hear that note. Yeah. It got to a point where I was playing on so many different records, and I'm still finding stuff I played on that I didn't remember. It turned into, I'm just trying to pay the rent.
Okay.
It became a job. I actually got to the point where it was almost like being on a job site.
Yeah.
You know.
Regardless of who it was. So when it's Annie Lennox, you're just like, whatever.
Well, Annie was special. Annie, she was one of the few singers that could nail it. You know, just go in the studio, nail it live. Yeah. She's brilliant.
Yeah.
And I liked her a lot. But a lot of singers, you know, by then they were piecing things together. You know, they couldn't stay in tune. They'd record them 3 times, you know, that type of thing. So a lot of things were manufactured at the time. I know Depeche Mode was kind of put together. I remember I did some tracks for them. And those guys, they had everyone had a different way of working. It was interesting.
Yeah.
And then I did this album. Yeah, I did this album called Major Malfunction.
Yep.
And
I listened to it.
You listened to it?
I did. Yeah.
What'd you make of it?
It was cool. I mean, I can't at the time, I can imagine. I'm like, this is pretty far out.
Well, that was like mostly tape manipulation.
Okay.
And
listen to it again.
I would do stuff like Adrian he'd do a mix of my beats, and then he'd record it on 6 stereo pairs.
Okay.
Record that on a multi-track, and then EQ that.
So it's just like making stems before the stems.
Right. And then dubbing it. He'd be dubbing it, and I'd be on a 1/2-inch machine.
Wow.
And like I'd do stuff like I'd record it once, and then I'd turn the tape over and have him record, you know, send it to me again. While he was sending it to me, I'd be taking it in and out of record in time.
Yeah, right.
So
God only knows.
And then, you know, I learned how to edit. Chris Lord Alge taught me how to edit because he didn't want to do an edit session for me. He goes, "You're a drummer, Keith. You can figure this out. Let me show you." You know.
Wow.
So I was off. So it was just tape editing. A lot of it.
Wow.
And I remember Future Sound of London came to the studio I was working at, and they expected to see all these computers and everything. You know.
Yeah, right. And there you are with the razor blades. Everything up.
And they, you know, all I had was like an S1000, you know, Mac, and, you know, drums and a couple little bits of gear, keyboards. And they were disappointed. And they said, "Well, Major Malfunction was like our Bible. How did you do all that?" And I said, "It was all tape manipulation."
Yeah,
and
crazy.
they were really disappointed.
Well, where there's a will, there's a way. Like you say, if you have the vision, you'll make it on whatever to a degree.
Yeah, that's what I found out. Whatever gear you possess, it's not the gear that's important. What's important is the idea.
Right.
And like my gear, I'll wait till the last possible minute to update anything, because when you do that, you're stuck in purgatory for a good month, you know.
Oh, getting the bugs out.
Yeah.
So you can't work.
Right.
Can't work like it.
So I like to keep the workflow going.
Yeah.
The stuff is like, well.
And then take a month off and let it update or something.
Right.
You want to be in the middle of a project and update. And then,
right.
Yeah.
And I'm always in the middle of a project, so.
Wow.
So I think the last time I updated was maybe 6 years ago.
Hey, man.
And
it's not broke.
As long as it's working.
Right.
So whatever you have.
Yep.
If you got a great idea, just go with that. That's what's important. It's not the gear.
Yeah.
And, you know, I met guys that they've got incredible gear.
Yeah.
And they're showing me all these plugins and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I said, "Can you play me anything you've done?" "Well, I'm still configuring."
Yeah.
Because you can get stuck in that.
Right. And
I've
then
been
you don't
there,
create.
you know.
Yeah, you're not creating anything.
You're like playing with plugins all day. It's like, what have I done today?
Yeah.
No results.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think, kind of.
I think that comes from coming up in an era where every minute was a lot of money.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we're in a different.
It's a different thing now.
A different head. Yeah. We're talking about, like being, like we're old enough that I still the mentality of like the red light goes on. like I'm going for a take from top to bottom
Right.
every time. And there's something about that focus that keeps you in. And then I remember when it became, I mean, I'm not complaining. I always still go for a take. But then just knowing that you can cut it up later, you don't bear down as hard because you're like, well, I'll get close. And then maybe they'll nudge or maybe they'll move or maybe they'll cut between takes. But like, yeah, back in the day, it was like, yeah, that's what, you'd be like, well, I only paid for 3 hours.
Right.
With my band or whatever, like we got to get this right.
Right.
It's crazy.
So you it's good you've got that work ethic because
I was just old enough. I was still recording the tape when I started. So it was like there was no tape. You couldn't even punch
all those
drums.
little imperfections that make the magic, really.
Right. No.
And so when I record something for myself, which is one of the hardest disciplines, I think, for me, I always go for a take, just for my own benefit.
Yeah.
The perfect take that I don't have to do anything to.
You're saving yourself time because you have the ability to do it if you focus.
Well, I don't get it every time. What I usually do now is I'll line it up 3 times. I'll do 3 takes,
Sure.
and then I won't listen to it for a couple days.
Yeah, you're talking about that. Yeah.
And so that's what I've come up with. But those imperfections become magic. And I think that's why a lot of the records in the 70s were so magical and so groundbreaking, because all those little imperfections turned into something. Like that song, Cold Duck Time.
Yeah.
I played with Eddie Harris when I was in England.
Yeah.
And
Boogaloo.
I was asking him about that, right? He was a genius, by the way. I mean, he was suffering from bone marrow cancer.
Whoa.
And that was a crazy gig. I mean, I didn't make the rehearsal because I had a session. So I came in the next day for sound check. And they introduced me to Eddie, and he goes, yeah, you're the MFer that didn't show up for the rehearsal.
Oh, no.
So my drums were set up, and I just got in back of the drums, and I was just opening the stick bag, and I hear, blues and D, 1, 2, 3, 4. Just like that, right? And I managed to get a stick out and get it to the rise cymbal.
Oh.
And, so then I sat down, but keeping up with that guy, I mean, I couldn't have kept up with him in his prime. He was
Imagine
off
that.
the chain, but he was telling me that Cold Duck Time was a mistake.
Yeah, right.
The first part of that, no one had the head yet. And it was a live recording, that real famous recording.
Yeah.
And he said it turned into, like, that's what people love about it.
Yeah, right. Because you hear him kind of come in with it.
Right.
It sounds so, that's,
Didn't come in right
You're right,
away.
that's magic, yeah.
And he was telling me crazy stories. He said when he met Jack DeJohnette, he was playing keyboards. And he said, you suck on keyboards, Jack. You're better on drums. So.
Oh, wow. Jeez.
And, he gave a lot of people their start. He's incredible. He'd start out the night, he'd just play a drum solo on the saxophone with the pads.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
Incredible,
that's a cool sound.
But I got to play, what's that famous tune he wrote that fusion tune everybody likes to play?
I can't think either.
Oh, man, I can't think of it, but I got to play that with him, and that was a great moment for me in time.
Yeah. I'm going to look it up.
Freedom Jazz Dance.
Right. Yep.
And the people that were on that gig, the club owner was ripping everybody off.
Oh, man.
So we had to take the club owner to the union to get paid some of the money they owed us. We had played a couple of weeks with Eddie.
And this was where?
This is in London.
Okay.
And the keyboard player, this girl, wonderful keyboardist named Nikki O, she's gotten jazz awards in the UK and everything. She went up to Eddie and she goes, I'm going to remember this the rest of my life. And Eddie goes, you sure are. Because he already had his money and he knew this,
what she's going to have to go through to get. Wow.
So
yeah,
I met, a lot of incredible characters, and but everybody that was a really great musician was always really fun to be around.
Yeah.
Really down to earth.
Yeah, that's cool.
I remember meeting John McLaughlin because Dennis was playing with him. We were doing the concert the next day, and Dennis had, I had shaved my head.
Sure.
Dennis was wearing a hat. His hair was going, and I used to tease him about it. So I'm in the audience, and in the middle of the show, Dennis takes his hat off. He's looking right at me. He takes his hat off, and people were turning around looking at me. And he's got his head shaved.
Yeah, right.
So we went in the dressing room, and,
That's
Doug
funny.
and Skip, they knew Dennis from way back, too. So they're telling him he looked like the guy from Spanky and Our Gang.
Yeah.
Curly, Three Stooges. And McLaughlin was loving it because he was used to people coming, oh, Dennis.
So now we're just we're just goofing around.
Just regular
Yeah,
people,
yeah.
and McLaughlin, he was so cool.
Yeah.
One of the greatest guitar players in the
He
world.
just wants someone to treat him normal.
Yeah.
That's all he's looking for.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and I think Roots were on the same gig, and I didn't get to meet Questlove. I really wanted to meet him. I eventually met him later on, but their DJ.
He must know who you are, Questlove, but he knows.
I did get to meet him once in New York, and that was a funny instance. Doug was there with me, and I said, hi, man, I love your work. Because I checked out the Roots, and I really loved what they were doing. And, I said, I really love your work. And he goes, oh, what's your name? I said, Keith. He goes, Keith who? I said, Keith LeBlanc. And he goes, you're the Keith LeBlanc? And I'm there. Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he said the one that played on the Sugar Hill record. So he turned out to be, he was quite a big fan of that.
Now, here's a question. You got to wonder this. When this is a terrible question, but you think about it. At that time, I wonder if it was pre-internet. I wonder if Questlove was like, "This is a white dude," or I wonder if he knew, because I'm the Keith LeBlanc. It's like, I'm.
Yeah, that's what he said. He goes, the Keith LeBlanc. Doug was laughing.
Like,
Doug was just standing behind me laughing, and but I didn't think of that because.
Yeah, right. Why would you?
An interviewer once asked me, he goes, he was asking me about the Jamaican thing, being involved in that. And he said, you must have got a lot of problems from people about your color, And I'm like, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, look, when it comes to music, it transcends everything.
Sure.
And the only thing people are interested in is whether you can deliver what is needed. They don't care what color you are. You can be from the moon. If you can play what they want to hear, that's all that matters. And
right. Why would they say, oh, yeah, he sounds great, but he's not the right color? Why?
Well, I would, there's idiots everywhere.
Well, yeah,
every once in a while you meet one and you just have to forgive them and just go on. But it's a shame in this country and in a lot of other countries we're still struggling with nonsense. Because
that's pointless.
The whole. I remember. It was about 4 years back when I first moved back. They kept going on about, a white cop shot a black youth.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, why can't they just say, a policeman shot a youth?
Yeah, that should be enough. That's enough problem to work on right there. Yeah.
And then I heard Morgan Freeman say, they asked him the same question. He said, well, the first thing we have to do is stop labeling each other.
Sure.
And, sure, there are cultural differences between the different races on this planet, but we're all human beings. We're all exactly the same.
Sure.
And those cultural differences should be enjoyed and embraced rather than, used to separate people. And I think it's all, me personally, I don't base it on anything except what I've seen in my life. I think it's a way to keep people separated so they never look at the bigger picture.
Why not? Yeah.
And,
it's easy enough. Yeah, just low-level nonsense.
Right. And it really, when I hear it, it's funny, you go through you go through your thing and you're not bothered with any of that, and then someone comes along and they make you think about it because of their actions, and then you have to deal with whatever their thought of it is. Like,
right. And meanwhile, you're not thinking of it like that because it's music. Like you said, it transcends all of those boundaries. You're not. No one that's really in the music thing is thinking like that. Right.
Exactly. And so I think that's a beautiful thing about music, because
that's what I was thinking.
You get, I see these wonderful young musicians, all races and creeds, just playing their butts off.
Yeah. And
that's really where it's at. It's all about the music, let everything else go, and so, I think they've been pushing that narrative worldwide for years.
Yeah.
And I think it's up to the younger generation. I think they don't look at it the same way anymore.
I think that's true.
And that's really...
At least it's a beginning. Yeah, we just don't, they don't care. Like we were taught to, like we were told that it matters, that matters.
Yeah.
And they don't. Yeah, maybe they won't.
But, I'm really happy to see the youth getting past that and going past that, because it's really not important, just concentrating on the music. The only thing I'm worried about is the AI stuff,
Yeah.
All these people were saying, oh, I don't like this AI playing bass lines and this and that. I said, well, I mentioned, I think I got interviewed about it, and I said, well, look, I'm waiting until the AI gets to a point where I can give it instructions to do what a human being could never do. That might be interesting.
Right. Yeah.
Try and, whatever the technology is,
wow.
Just take it and use it as an art form rather than
trying to replace what
humans already do.
Well, that's your mind. That's where you are. You're thinking ahead. That's what you did in the first place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's why you are who you are.
An interviewer once asked me, he goes, you must miss the old way of recording, the tape and the rollback and everything. I said, no, I don't miss it at all.
Yeah.
And he said, why? And I said, well, I can get up in the morning, roll out of bed in my underwear, and try anything I can imagine. I don't have to go anywhere to do it.
Right. You have to worry about the clock.
And I said, that's a beautiful thing. And, he kind of looked at me a little strange, expected a different answer, but I never really, I think that's why I loved Miles Davis. He always just kept progressing.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to do that. I did that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You know what? We got to go. I don't want to go. This is freaking awesome. We got to do this even again. This is funny. No, this is something else.
Maybe do it in a few years when I got a beard.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
No, you should get your own show, man.
Oh, man, I couldn't do that. I couldn't.
No?
No. I couldn't.
I didn't do... Yeah, you could. Whatever. Whatever.
That's... You really have to think on many levels to do an interview. And
that's what they say. I don't know. There's no biggie. I'm interested. I'm genuinely interested. That's all you got to do.
Well, like you said, we're both musical geeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're just lucky that being a geek got to be trendy eventually.
Yeah. I know. It is funny when you think about it. Yeah. All right. Well, you know what? I got to press the button.
Yeah, man. We'll press it.
Hey, once again, Keith LeBlanc Part 2 was here. I don't know. Does he get another mug? Do you need it?
No. One's sufficient, but I really love it. I love my mug. I already used it. It works great.
Hey, man. Keith LeBlanc was here again. We'll do this again.
Jon Peckman,
Grow Beard.
the ultimate.
Hey. You heard it here first, kids. Thank you. I'm going to press the button. I really appreciate you being here. So everybody, you got to listen to my mixes when I post them. You got to get the whole story. It's going to blow your mind. It blew my mind, and I thought I knew everything. I didn't know everything. Jon Peckman Podcast, Connecticut Valley School of Music and Dance, beautiful downtown Portland. Come over the bridge, go through one set of lights, pull a U, park in the street in front of the red neon sign in the window. Have your own podcast. Dave will tell you how. Tell your friends, neighbors, hit the bell, hit the alert, like, subscribe, pull up your pants, tuck in. I don't know. What else? What else can we do? I guess that is all, right?
That's all.
All right.
Okay,
Hey,
bye.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you. That is all.
If you'd like to start your own podcast, give us a call at Connecticut Valley School of Music and Dance. Our professionally designed podcast space is here for all your recording needs. Rent out our studio to do interviews with up to 4 people, to record audiobooks, social media content, and all other recorded material. Our rentals include a private studio along with our professional-grade podcasting equipment, and we can customize your output to whatever your needs are. We also have green screen capabilities, which will expand to video capability if you so wish. So check us out here at convalley.net/podcast.